I will talk about what I'm here to talk about. We live in extraordinary times. I can tell you 10 years from now, 20 years from now, maybe even 50 years from now, the last month will be talked about. The Citizenship Amendment Act was passed by the Parliament of India on the 12th of, passed by and signed by the President of India on the 12th of December. So we've had almost exactly 1 month since the protests began. And the protest began actually on that very day. In what I'm going to speak today, I want to talk not just about the protests. I want to analyze this particular issue step by step, logically, to see why is it that people like me are opposed to it? Why is it that people like me think that this tiny amendment to one law in the country is a matter of saving the soul of India? This is a battle for the very idea of India. Why do I think so? And towards the end, I will say something about if we are on the same page on this, if it is indeed a battle for the soul of India, then what you and I should be doing about it, other than preparing for civil services. First thing first, this is about citizenship. This is about immigration, this is about refugees, this is about allowing people to come in India and become Indians. That's what it is all about. What should be the principle then? I want to start with Swami Vivekananda. Day before yesterday was Swami Vivekananda's birth anniversary, which is celebrated throughout the country as the Youth Day. Everyone in India, especially every Hindu in India, remembers something that Swami Vivekananda did. Somehow in our collective national memory, Swamiji's address in Chicago is imprinted. It is as if a religious Olympiad was held and as if Swamiji got us a gold medal there. That's how we Indians like to remember that event. In that lecture, a remarkable lecture, he gave several lectures in that World Congress on Religion in 1893. His opening address, a remarkable address by any means, and it's given in English, so please read that. It was in English. He says he's proud of being a Hindu. Remember, in that World Congress, people from all religions were there. And everyone was trying to say what's better about my religion, how my religion is superior to your religion. Swamiji goes there and says, I'm proud of being a Hindu because my religion acknowledges the truth of every other religion. So it's not that I'm superior to you. I actually see the truth of your religion. Then he says, I'm proud of being an Indian, which is what is relevant to what we are discussing today. He says he's proud of being an Indian because we have given shelter to anyone who sought refuge from any religion, from any nationality. These are his words. These are not words inserted by me after CAA was passed by the Parliament. Swami Vivekananda says that his pride in India comes from the fact that this country has given shelter to anyone from any nation or from any religion. These are the two things he emphasizes there. So maybe that should be the starting point. This is not merely the sentiment of one person. We all celebrate it, we all like it, because in some ways Swami Vivekananda was articulating what is our civilizational principle. Civilizations, countries, nations wish to celebrate themselves by identifying some virtue that they celebrate. They don't actually practice that virtues, most of them, but they wish to be remembered with reference to that virtue, because that becomes your self-identifier, that becomes a marker of your identity. So let's say that is the first principle of citizenship, first principle by which we should judge the question of who should be allowed to come inside India, who should be allowed to be a citizen, etc. So the first principle, very simply stated, is that as a large, democratic civilization, we should be open to those who seek shelter in our country. And this openness should not be conditional on nationality and religion. That's principle number one. Is that enough as a principle? That's probably not enough, because you need a secondary qualifying principle to that. How many can you take? How many would come in? Can you take anyone who wishes to come into India? Probably not. There's a limit. Because of the size of the country. We are not Canada, we are not Australia, we are not a country with huge barren land which can take a few crore people. We are not. So, we need a secondary principle, and the secondary principle would be that those who need shelter, for whatever reason, persecution can be one reason, the life conditions can be another reason, those who need it. And remember, we need a third principle to go with it, which is that the responsibility of taking in people from outside cannot be put on one part of the country. It has to be a shared responsibility. You cannot say, I cannot say, let's open this room and all the people who want to come in should settle on this desk. They would say, sorry, we can't take so many. If you want to be generous, then let that be spread in all the rows, let that be shared by every little space available in this room. All right? So these are the three principles. Fundamental principle, openness to anyone from any part of the world without looking at things like nationality and religion. Second, limit this based on genuine need, genuine demonstrated need. Third, whatever the burden or responsibility should be shared by the entire country. Are these reasonable principles? Do you get it? What's your sense on this? Are we setting out some reasonable principles, or are these very arbitrary, whimsical, one-sided principles? I assume that they look like reasonable principles. If you have any questions, do ask. Okay, now let's take the second step. Let's look at the law and the constitution. The principles are moral principles, not necessarily inscribed in law. Now let's look at the law. Our constitution lays down a few principles. One, it says India is a secular country. Someone would tell you the word secular was inserted in 1976 in a constitutional amendment that was a bad amendment. That's true. It was a bad amendment done during emergency. But please remember, much of the 42nd Amendment was reversed a year later, 2 years later by Janata Party. But this was not, because this was a national consensus. And in any case, much before the word secularism was inserted in the Constitution, the Supreme Court of India had said there is something called the basic structure of our Constitution which cannot be amended. And the Supreme Court had said secularism is one of those features of our Constitution. Because every single provision of secularism was already present in the Constitution. The word secular was not used, that was inserted in 1976. So our Constitution is secular, which is to say, it goes on to spell out that citizenship of this country cannot be linked to religion in any way. That is further spelled out in Article 14, Article 21. Article 14 clearly says, there cannot be any discrimination against anyone residing in India. Remember, it's not only for citizens. Article 14 applies to anyone. Tibetans living here next door can go to Supreme Court and claim protection again under Article 14. You cannot say you are not a citizen of India, you won't be allowed this. No. Everyone is entitled to this. Article 14 says no discrimination based on religion, sex, caste, creed, all kinds of things. Religion is clearly mentioned there. These are constitutional principles. So, in what I said in the beginning as moral principles, we can now see them taking a legal shape. Indian Constitution, and in many ways that's what Indian Constitution is. Indian Constitution is a way to codify in a legal language what was a civilizational consensus forged through the Indian freedom struggle. Indian freedom struggle evolved certain principles. These principles were derived from Indian civilization, but also adopted in many cases from modern Western civilization. Those principles were given a legal language in the Constitution. So the Constitution clearly provides for a secular basis of our citizenship. Constitution provides for non-discrimination. The Constitution does not provide for an immigration or a refugee policy. That was left for future generations, for the governments. And sadly, that's something our government never evolved. No government ever evolved a formal immigration policy, like, who can come into India, who cannot. We have never had a formal refugee policy. There is a UN Convention on Refugees, but sadly, India has never signed that. That's the legal part. Now let's look at the facts of the case. Do we have a citizenship problem in this country? Is citizenship an issue? All the principles and laws aside, in reality on the ground, is citizenship a real burning problem that awaits urgent attention? I don't think so. If I were to, before all this Jamela began, if I were to come into your class and say, all right, let us list the major problems of India, I could have filled this entire board without anyone mentioning citizenship as an issue. You would have said unemployment, someone would have said inflation, poverty, development, environment, climate change, education, health, all kinds of things, women's security, minority security, all kinds of things we would have written. I doubt if anyone would have written the word citizenship in that list that would fill this entire board. Is that a fair assessment? So, citizenship is not one of our burning national problems. However, if I was giving this lecture in Guwahati, then someone at number 6 or 7 or number 10 would have said, sir, citizenship is also an issue. It's an issue in that part of the country. It is an issue in Tripura. It is an issue in certain parts of the Northeast, not the whole of Northeast. Certain pockets of Northeast, this is a real and burning issue. Has been an issue for quite some time. So, citizenship is not one of our central major national problems waiting urgent attention. But it is a specific local issue. There are 2 or 3 kinds of issues which are local issues. One is, it's an issue, the issue is that those who came to India seeking refuge from Pakistan, from Sri Lanka, these are, and from Bangladesh, we did not have coherent policies for them, and it used to take a very long time for them to be given refugee status or to be given the citizenship of India. Pakistan's record on treating its minorities has been abysmal. Hindu minorities, Christian minorities, Sikhs, and sects within Islam, Ahmadiyas and so on, have been given a very shoddy treatment in Pakistan. So yes, they need refuge. Yes, they look to India to get refuge. They deserve it. And our law was rather too complicated. Said you have to wait for 12 years in order to get that. There always was a way that you could give it. Do remember, our law always permitted the government of India to grant citizenship to anyone from outside. And we've had great examples of that. One of the finest economists of this country, Jean Grace, has citizenship of this country. He's a citizen. Not by birth, not by descent, but by what is called naturalization. So that scope was always there for the government. It's just that it was a rather long route. So that was a minor problem of citizenship to be handled. The other somewhat major problem that needed handling was that in areas bordering Bangladesh, because Bangladesh, India border has been a porous border. For a very long time, it was a border where you get up in the morning in Bangladesh, come and ply rickshaw in India during the day, and go back for dinner to Bangladesh. That is the kind of border that we've had. That's actually, this is not an exaggeration, that was actually a routine situation in India-Bangladesh border. So given that very porous border, there has been a huge migration from Bangladesh into India. Not primarily for religious reasons, but primarily because at that time, Bangladesh was much, much poorer than India. India was a land of economic opportunities. So, throughout 20th century, there has been a long and very large-scale migration from Bangladesh into India, which had Muslims and Hindus. Initially, the migration was primarily Muslim peasants coming into Assam, not because of any religious or political considerations, simply because of economic considerations. Toward the second half of the 20th century, that is to say post-independence and post the formation of Pakistan, the migrants were more Hindu, and many of them came out of religious persecution, because especially the East Pakistani regime was, again, like the Pakistani regime in general, was oppressive to the minorities. And many Hindus came for that reason as well, especially around the 1971 war. So the second major problem, but a local regional problem, was that there were very large number of migrants who came from Bangladesh into Assam and some bordering districts of West Bengal, who did not have papers, who were illegal immigrants. And in some cases, the number was so large that it changed the local demography. In many cases, in bordering districts of Assam, Bengali-speaking persons became majority. And this created some unease. The proportion of Bengali speakers has shot up in Assam's population over the last few decades, ever throughout the 20th century, but especially in these times of peak migration. That created a lot of anxiety in Assam. Ahomia speakers, that is to say, Assam's, the most recognized people, although they are not necessarily the only indigenous people of Assam. Assam has many indigenous people. Ahomias are only one of them. Ahomia speakers started feeling that we would be minority in our own land, or we probably have become minority in our own land due to people who are illegal immigrants into India. Now, these illegal immigrants were Hindus as well as Muslims. And there was a long movement in Assam from 1977 to 1985, which said these foreigners must be thrown out. The movement was not against Muslims, the movement was against Bengalis. They said against illegal immigrants, but basically these were Bengali immigrants. The movement was against Bengali immigrants and did not distinguish between Hindus and Muslims. So this has been a problem. It's a regional problem, but an intense problem in that region. Now let's come to CAA. Now let's look at the reality. So the government of India comes up with a law, comes up with a few provisions. Let us see whether these provisions solve the problem and conform to the principles that we have already established. All right, so we've established some principles. We've noticed a real problem. And CAA would be a very good law if it conforms to those principles and if it solves that problem. Even if it's a small problem, okay, you're sorting it out. Especially because in some parts of the country it's a big problem. Then it's all right, it's a good law if that is the case. What does the CAA do? CAA proponents tell us, look, we have brought in a law to give Indian citizenship to persecuted minorities from our neighborhood. And Mr. Yadav, what's your problem? You've been saying all along minorities should be looked after, and now we pass a law saying persecuted minorities from neighborhood should be given Indian citizenship. Why are you complaining about it? The second argument that is given in favor of that is that, look, it does nothing to the citizenship of those who are already citizens of India. This law is limited only to illegal immigrants. It doesn't apply to anyone else. These are the two reasons. What does the law say? Please remember the provisions of this Citizenship Amendment Act. Basically what it does is that it amends India's basic citizenship law of 1955 that has been amended by this particular amendment. Please remember, what you hear on television is not written into the law. On television, the reasoning is persecuted minorities from our neighborhood. The law does not use the word persecuted minorities even once. The actual amendment, it says in the preface, it says all those nice things. But in the actual amendment which would be operative, it simply says those illegal immigrants who come from Bangladesh, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and who belong to Hindu, Christian, Sikh, Parsi and Buddhist religion, they will be given a special exemption. This exemption will take two forms. Number one, if there is a pending case against them for being an illegal immigrant, that case will be waived off. And two, they will be given a fast-track citizenship. So negativity would be over, additional positivity would be introduced. They will be given a fast-track citizenship within 5 years, rather than 12 years of wait as used to be the case. This is what the law says. Does it pass the Vivekananda test? The Vivekananda test is, we should be open to everyone without reference to nationality and religion. And remember, CAA puts exactly these two conditions, as if the whole point of this amendment is to say what Swami Vivekananda said was wrong. We want to disprove him. We are not the nation that he took pride in. Because it says, first check nationality, then check religion. Defenders of the Act say, but this is a very natural kind of selection. What's wrong here? These are the three countries which are dominated by one religion by law. That's not quite true. It is true that Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh are countries where one religion has been given an official status in the constitution. But it is also true that Sri Lanka does the same. Article 9 of Sri Lankan constitution gives Buddhism a special status in Sri Lanka. Not applied to Sri Lanka. Since this act is to apply to everything that happened before 2014, please remember that till 2006 or 2008, Nepal was a Hindu state. Why not apply it to Nepal? If the logic is that we picked up these three states because these are three theocratic states, please include Sri Lanka and Nepal as well. If the logic is that we looked at only persecuted minorities, all right, what do you think of Tibetans in India? Are they not persecuted minorities? Have the Chinese Communist state not destroyed their religious institutions? Has their religious had not been forced to take shelter in India? Why not Tibetans? What about Rohingyas of Burma? Are they not persecuted minorities? They sought shelter in India and were refused. So, because this point has been belabored so often by so many people, I just want to remind you that selection of 3 countries rather than the entire neighborhood or the entire universe which Swami Vivekananda wanted, they pick up 3 countries. That is arbitrary, illogical. Selection of only 5 minorities and no one else. Who are we leaving? We are leaving 2 categories. One, we are leaving tiny minorities. There are large number of other minorities in Bangladesh and Pakistan. Any mistake, those who have different religions and so on, they are left out. And of course, what is left out is the big M, Muslims. In a sense, what this amendment amounts to is as if India has put a board on its borders. No Muslims, please. This is the essence of this amendment. Now, this does not pass ethical test of Swami Vivekananda. This does not pass the constitutional test. For the first time in the history of this country, citizenship is being linked to religion. Never before. It does not pass the test of Article 14 because it draws a distinction between Muslims and non-Muslims. It gives you a list of religions and leaves someone out, a distinction which is arbitrary, which is illogical. It does not pass the test of India's freedom struggle. What was the whole point of opposing two-nation theory? You know, we've all grown up hearing about two-nation theory of Mr. Jinnah, how our freedom struggle opposed it, how we were opposed to the partition of the country. What was the point? Mr. Jinnah said, look, religion and nationality are linked. Hindus and Muslims, in his belief, were not only 2 religions, but because they are 2 religions, they are also 2 nations. Therefore, he said, India must be divided into 2 nations, a Hindu nation and a Muslim nation. Indian freedom struggle said, no, this is unacceptable to us. They said, this was Gandhi, Patel, Ambedkar, Azad, everyone said, without exception. They said, division of India based on religion is unacceptable to us. Someone would say, all right, it may have been unacceptable, but that did take place. Well, it took place partially, not fully. It is true that Pakistan was built for Muslims only. But India was not built for Hindus only. This is not just a historic accident. This is what our national movement reiterated again and again. Gandhiji again and again says, this is a country, Gandhiji that the Prime Minister is fond of quoting these days. Gandhiji said that, there's this famous speech of Gandhiji given in Khasera village of Mewat, where Gandhiji goes on the 19th of December. These are Muslims of Mewat, about 100 kilometers away from Delhi. They were going away to Pakistan because they were being attacked, and like everyone else, they were leaving. Gandhiji goes there and says, this is your motherland. Don't leave I promise you, you will be treated equally. Just because you are Muslims, you don't need to go to Pakistan. Pakistan may be only for Muslims, but every Muslim need not be in Pakistan. India is open for everyone. Gandhi says that, Nehru says that, and our constitution says that. The only person who agreed with Mr. Jinnah and his two-nation theory was Mr. Savarkar. Both of them agreed from exactly opposite point of view that India should be divided between Hindus and Muslims. Our freedom struggle rejected it. And the Citizenship Amendment Act accepts the logic of two-nation theory. By linking citizenship to religion, we have accepted the two-nation theory. That is what is so sad about what we have done. After standing up to this, after 70 years of upholding a model for the rest of the world, after 70 years of rejecting a failed European model, the European model was this: one religion, one race, one language, one nation. This is the European nation-state model. We in India rejected it. For 70 years, we demonstrated to the world that you could actually build a nation with differences and diversities. And just when we succeeded, and just when the world has started looking up to us and copying us, we give up. This is what CAA is doing. It's a civilizational surrender. After the great civilizational courage to say India will provide a different model to the rest of the world of deep diversities with a nation state. Now we are saying, no, we want to copy Israel. We want to copy Pakistan. This is what really hurts me. It's not merely about one piece of law, one piece of one minority, one community. It is a civilizational surrender after 70 successful years. I'll just say something about NPR and NRC and then come to the operational things. The Prime Minister says, the government says that look, CAA by itself, you may not like the inclusion, you may not like the exclusions. But the fact is that it applies only to those who have to come from outside India. It doesn't touch any existing Indian Muslim citizen. What is the problem? It is true. CAA by itself will not affect a single Indian citizen who is currently the citizen of India, because that's what the law, the amendment is only about illegal immigrants. It does not touch anyone else. But then there is something else called the NRC and NPR, which is actually the same thing. What NRC would do is suddenly the government of India says, we need to have a register, a full and comprehensive register of Indian citizens. And it will be freshly prepared. So all this exercise of Aadhaar is of no use. All the voters list that you have in this country are of no use. Ration cards and all those multiple lists that the government has developed is of no use. We shall freshly draw up a list of citizens of this country. The first step of that will be National Population Register, which begins in the month of April, which will be a list of all those who reside in this country, from which foreigners will be taken out. Those who declare themselves to be foreigners will be obviously crossed out. But also, those who are suspected to be foreigners will also be thrown out. How do we suspect? A local tehsildar, an official lower than that, would simply mark D against names that he or she suspects to be foreigners. On what ground? Not specified so far. Now, in Uttar Pradesh, given what you have watched in the last 15-20 days, given the kind of assault on minorities, if that officer who is currently in charge of assaulting them gets the right to decide who is a doubtful Indian citizen and who is not, No prizes for guessing who would be called doubtful. After that, there is a legal procedure. It's true that the official saying doubtful is not enough. After that begins a legal process. Once they are declared doubtful, then the onus will be on that citizen to prove that he or she is a citizen. They would have to bring documents. And routine documents that ordinary citizens have, like Aadhaar, ration card, and voter list, that won't be sufficient. I'm saying this based on the experience of NRC in Assam, where these three were not accepted. If the government of India has different criteria, they should say so. Otherwise, we would assume that what was announced in Assam is the only criteria. Now, just imagine what it would do to our country. Crores of people running around to get documents. And documents are not only about where you reside. Document is about where you were born. Not just that. Where your parents were born. To tell you absolute truth, I do not know where my mother was born. I have a fair guess, but the guess is separated by about 1,000 kilometers. It's either in Allahabad or in Gurgaon. Oh no. So I would have to give it evidence. I would have to give it proof. Where proof of my mother's birth. I don't know where she was born in the first place. I have a broad idea of the year that she was born. And mind you, she's an educated person. She's not one of those completely, someone who never went to school or college. She was a teacher all her life. So, I mean, if this is true of my mother, just imagine what kind of things we are going to go through. Crores of people running around for documents, someone bribing some officer, someone trying to do something, someone forging a document, all kinds of things would happen. So in a sense, this entire NRC exercise would do to our society what demonetization did to our economy. In a nutshell, this is a solution desperately in search of a problem. I have a medicine, I have an injection. I don't know the disease for which it is applicable. But I'm very keen to give you that injection. You need it, you desperately need it. You say, no, I don't need it, I'm all right. But I grab you and I say, no, you need an injection. Then, of course, you develop an allergy because of that injection. And then injection becomes a disease. This is exactly what happened with demonetization. Except that it was a short-term disease. This is not going to be a short-term disease. So what it would do in the rest of the country would be exactly what demonetization did. Would catch a few million people at least. In India, if you say it catches 0.1%, remember 0.1% of India is more than a million human beings. If it catches 1% of India, then we're looking at 13 million human beings. What would it do in Assam? Well, in Assam, what it would do is very simple. All the illegal immigrants who are Muslims will become foreigners. All those who are Hindus, there are no Sikh immigrants from Bangladesh, there are hardly any Christian immigrants from Bangladesh, they are Sikh or they are Hindu or Muslim. So the Muslims will become foreigners, Hindus will become son-in-laws. They will all be accepted. That's the purpose of the act. That's why I say that this is the Citizenship Amendment Act is the most perverse piece of legislation passed by Indian Parliament ever. NRC is an assault on India, on the very idea of India. What it would amount to is basically trying to create a Hindu Israel or a Hindu Pakistan. What we are basically saying is this. Look, if you are a Hindu or a Sikh, etc., it's your country. Doesn't matter. You don't have papers, it's all right. Ghar ke log ho na, aa jao, koi baat nahi. But if you are Muslim, thank you. Sorry, no place for you. That's basically what we are saying. This is exactly what Israel says. Israel says if you are a Jew, no matter where you are born, no matter what your papers, come here, you'll get a citizenship. So this is a Hindu Israel that we want to create. This is my objection. This is why this is an assault on the idea of India. And anyone who cares for India must stand up now, because tomorrow would be too late. The last 1 month has seen an extraordinary coming out of people, extraordinary protests, which within the last 1 month have turned from a protest into a national movement. It began as a protest in Assam. Assam was the first one to protest. Their problem was indiscriminate inclusion. The worry in Assam is these many Hindu Bengalis will be given citizenship, and then they would roam around all over the northeast. Massive protest, which is so seriously underreported in our media. On the 13th or on the 12th possibly itself, there was a curfew in Guwahati. And you know how many people defied it? 10,000 people came out on a street, held a public meeting during curfew. This is the kind of defiance that you have seen. Every day meetings are taking place in village after village. This is being rejected. Then the protest came from the Muslim community, because they were clearly the most obviously targeted community. They were being named in a piece of law for exclusion. They came out. And how? Not just numbers, we've not had this kind of protest from Muslim community on anything in the last 70 years. Cutting across regions, cutting across all divides. And one of the most beautiful things of that protest is the manner in which women have come out. I'm sure many of you would have gone to Shaheen Bagh. If you haven't, please go, just for pilgrimage, go there. Just watch these ordinary women. These are not political activists, these are not your dharna pradarshan people. These ordinary women have come out and have occupied streets for months. If that's too far for you, yesterday night another Shaheen Bagh has been inaugurated in a place called Khoreji, which is next to ITU. Go there. Just meet ordinary Muslim women coming out to claim their citizenship, their national. Just look at the symbols. Look at the tricolor. Sadly, the Prime Minister of this country can only recognize clothes. And by clothes, what he means is topi and hijab. That's what he can notice. Why does he not notice that other piece of cloth, namely Tiranga, which is there all over? Why can he not hear the slogans about India, Indianness, love for Hindustan, which is all over these people? So that was the second protest. But what has happened in the last 15 days is a third protest has joined it, namely the protest of the youth. It began as a protest against what happened in Jamia. I think the regime did not expect. Such is the mind of the people who run this country, that they thought that if we do something in Jamia, only a couple of Muslim places will protest, no one else will protest. Indian youth defied them. At least 30 campuses rose that next day and said this is unacceptable. Then happened Aligarh Muslim University, then happened JNU. And the response to JNU has been an extraordinary response. And for good reason. Any student can see. Suppose some 50 goons were to enter your college, and the police were to stand at the gate of your college to ensure that no media can come in, no one can come in to protect you, your parents will be standing outside, and the job of the police is to give cover to these gundas. This is what happened in jail. Students have come out. And what we are witnessing is an extraordinary outpouring of youth energy. This happens to be a trigger. I think it's also linked to something deeper, because our campuses are such suffocating places, because our rulers wish to infantilize college and university students. They want to treat college and university students as if they study in nursery. as if they are kindergarten students. They are not. That's what students are saying, that we refuse to be infantilized. They are also asking questions of equal educational opportunity and equal employment opportunity. So let me wind up all that I've been trying to say to simply suggest that we are at a moment in our national history where the very foundational idea of India needs to be defended once again. Being a free country in 1947 was not enough. We need to fight to retain those ideas once again. At a point where the republic is being dismantled brick by brick, and the people have to come out to reclaim that republic. Those who are at the top are trying to divide the country, very consciously trying to divide the country. Why? Because you want to win Assam election and you want to win West Bengal election. For these two things, you want to stake the unity of the country? At this point, people have come out to unite the country. As we say in our movement, वो तोड़ेंगे, हम जोड़ेंगे. At this moment, I know you have studies, I know you have exams, I know you have civil services, but there is something much deeper waiting your attention. If we do not defend the republic now, 5 years from now, there may not be much left to defend in the first place. When you become civil servants, and I hope many of you do, you want to live in a country where there is a rule of law. If there is no rule of law, what can a civil servant do? Anyone would pick a phone and tell you, go and shoot this person. Do you want to carry out such orders? We want to be in a country where there is a rule of law, where constitution is supreme. And today, that constitution is being shredded. That's why I would say, I would appeal to you, I would urge, this youth moment is a moment to reclaim the republic. It is not about left and right, forget it. You may be left, you may be right, you may be neither. This is about right versus wrong. What is being perpetuated is wrong, ethical, moral, political, social wrong of the worst kind is being perpetuated. We must stand up now. There is a movement all over the country. They are being united. There is a banner called Hum Bharat Ke Log, We the People of India. It's a banner, it's not an organization, it's not a coalition. It's under this banner, all the movements are beginning to come together. With a very simple thing, that we will not use any party or organizational flag, we will use only tricolor. We will be completely non-violent. And we shall use principles of our constitution, whatever may be my ideology. For the time being, preamble to Indian constitution is my ideology. This is what we want to do. And I came here to invite you to be part of this movement, this struggle. Don't think struggle means only going out on the street, courting arrest and saying Zindabad, Murdabad, etc. That may also be necessary. That's beautiful, that should be done. But you don't need to begin by doing that. You can begin by spending a day on an hour on social media, 2 hours on social media. You can begin by recording a video. You can do hundreds of things right now to defend the republic. So I end by inviting all of you to join this movement. That would be first step to the civil service that you wish to do. Probably by the end of it, some of you may wish to again, you may end up achieving the country of whose civil servants you want to be. Or maybe, hopefully, some of you might find that this service is better than the service that you were aspiring for. Thank you.